Okay, WADA has imposed a 4-year ban on Russian international teams competing at a variety of international sporting events. In fact, all of them. Is the best way to describe it. That will include, obviously, the upcoming Summer Olympics, upcoming Winter Olympics, Euro 2020, the World Cup in Qatar in 2022, the Rugby Union World Cup in 2023, the next 4 World Championship ice hockey tournaments, World Athletics, cycling, swimming, gymnastics. I believe Davis Cup tennis is in there as well because Russia field a team in that. Badminton, you name it, the whole lot. Anything international that has Russia as a team in it, they are banned from. They had a ban at the Rio Olympics in 2016, and the IAAF also upheld the ban of the athletes participating at the recent World Championships in Qatar. So the Russian athletes were appearing who were eligible to appear, who were clean athletes, who they couldn't have failed a previous doping test, appeared under a neutral banner. This is what's going to happen going forward: is athletes from Russia who have not failed a dope test will be allowed to compete under the neutral banner. This has been an ongoing issue since Sochi 2014, the Winter Olympics, obviously in Russia, 5 years ago, nearly 6 years ago now. Whistleblowers came out and said that there was state-sponsored doping in the year following. WADA launched an investigation, put in a international ban, I believe, initially for 2 years. Russia appealed that ban. This came after the Rio 2016 Olympics. There was an appeal. The appeal was not upheld. Other sporting bodies and like World Championships allowed the Russians to compete as teams, but the IOC upheld the ban. The Russians were allowed to compete at the World Championship Ice Hockey, the IIHF Championship Ice Hockey back in May. They were allowed to compete as a team, but at the Olympics earlier in the year they weren't. So as you can see, there is this it was not a unified ban before. WADA has now said no, it has to be a unified ban for 4 years. Russia are not the only nation that has a massive doping problem, be it systematically state-sponsored or the training camps themselves being allowed to get away with it. We see it in the US with the collegiate system. We're seeing issues in Kenya and Ethiopia. This isn't a new thing. Look at the Cold War, study sports history, go back to the 70s and 80s, look at the East German team, especially the East German swimming team and cycling teams, especially the women's teams, heavily doped. The US system back then, so many American athletes were doping. You look at all the records from the 70s and 80s and just discount them. 88% of the athletes at Seoul, in the Seoul Olympics, would have failed a drugs test today. That's how dirty that Olympic Games was, and in some events it was nearly as high as 90%. That 100-metre final, only one athlete ended up being clean. The guy who finished last. In lane 9, I believe, or lane 1, and he was the Brazilian. That 100-metre final in Seoul 88 was the dirtiest Olympic event of all time. And they looked at the test results that were given, and they approximated anywhere between 70 and 90% of the athletes at Seoul 1988 would fail today under the current testing regimes. They would fail. So doping has been a problem for a very, very, very long time. I do believe there is some politics behind this singling out Russia as the fall guy for international athletes doping. It happens. It's a soft diplomacy, soft sanction. If you get that geopolitically, which is more a video for the other channel. But there are currently international sanctions against Russia at this current time for a variety of various things on the international stage. This is one of those kind of political sanctions put in place to harm the image of Russia abroad. Russia will appeal, I have no doubt. They've appealed before against these blanket bans. Initially it was going to be a 2-year ban. They appealed. Some of the governing bodies, accepted the appeal and said you can have a team that can compete at Russia. The Russia World Cup last year, they were the hosts. So they couldn't ban the hosts from their own World Cup, although it almost looked likely at one point. So it is interesting. Will there be appeals? Most likely, yes. Will they be successful? Probably not. I think WADA have finally said enough's enough. Let's stop, skirting the issue. But this case has highlighted the failings of so many sports governing bodies for so long, and the doping authorities for so long as well. It has highlighted the failings in international sport, and they are still there. And we know there's corruption in international sport. We know there's systematic structural failings within international sport, and this Russia case has highlighted those failings over the last 5-6 years. But there we go. Russia has been banned by WADA for 4 years from international sport. So thank you very much for watching. Please place your thoughts below. Do you think it's long enough? Do you think it's too long? Do you think any appeals will be successful with the various governing bodies of international sport? So the double IHF, so the ice hockey, the IAAF for the athletics, FIFA with the football, and UEFA in that sense. Do you think any appeals put forward by the Russian delegations will be accepted? And how long will the blanket ban last? That's the kind of questions that I'm looking to have answered, because we've seen a blanket ban put in place before and it didn't last very long. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts below, and I'll have some more videos for you very, very soon.